Hello and welcome back again to the 23rd episode of the Binteger podcast. My name is Benny. I'm your host for this program. And today we are discussing my motivation for integrity. Thanks again for being here. Where integrity calls and wholeness responds. I love the tagline, where integrity calls and wholeness responds. Whenever I hear that, there's something in me that says, yes, I want to pursue this even more. And so today, like I said, we're talking about my motivation for pursuing integrity, where it all started for me, how this catalytic sequence of events came to be. And I want you to be considering, as I share my motivation, I want you to consider what your motivations are, dear Bintagers. What are your motivations for pursuing and experiencing integrity in your lives? There are some motivations that seem compelling and others that may not get you to the mark that you seek. And so it's really important that we talk about the motivations, the intentions behind those motivations. More on that in just a couple of moments. But first, as always, we like to spend a few moments doing our feelings check-in. This is one of the exercises that I have come to really value highly, because for me, it's my way of saying, here's how I practice integrity by honestly reflecting what's going on internally for me. So in this moment, how am I feeling? I'm feeling a little bit like I spent the day today trying to figure out some space making on my hard drive, and so that took some time. I had more ambitions of getting more done today, and I didn't, so I'm a little bit dissatisfied as a result. I'm a little dissatisfied by the way I've used my time. I feel that there hasn't been the most efficient use of time. I still have my laundry over yonder that needs to be ironed, and so that's where I'm at. I'm feeling a little dissatisfied. How else am I feeling? I'm also feeling a little bit sad because it's getting colder, and I do not like the cold weather. But that's where I'm feeling right now. A little dissatisfied with my work productivity and a little bit sad because outside it is getting cold, and that's not my favorite. It's not that cold. It's just only -10, and yet still I'm like, ugh. Let me review a few of the feelings that I want to share with y'all so that your vocabulary expands in describing where you're at. And this is, I find it such a wonderful option in the English language when we have access to words that can describe exactly how we're feeling. In the absence of those, I feel so lost. You want to describe something, but there's just not the right words. And so this is my way of serving you by sharing some of these. These are the unpleasant emotions that arise when your values and desires aren't fulfilled to the degree that you're longing for. And here's a handful of those. There's bored, suspicious. You may be feeling suspicious or overwhelmed, heartbroken, or helpless. And once again, bored, suspicious, overwhelmed, heartbroken, and helpless. And then in the positive emotions category, now these are emotions that you might feel when your longings and desires are fulfilled. You might be feeling warm and friendly, perhaps calm, content, or clear-headed. Once again, warm, friendly, calm, content, and clear-headed. I hope those vocabulary options serve you well in your practice of this exercise, this discipline that I've come to value, and I do it almost on a daily basis now. It's my practice to say, where am I at right now? And it's a wonderful reflection on what's going on internally. And this is a great way to practice, especially for those of us who have never been affirmed or for whom it has never been modeled how to express our emotions. This is one of those ways to be able to do so. And so I hope that serves you well. Let me now dive into the main point of today's podcast, and that is me telling you a story of my motivation for pursuing integrity, my motivation for integrity. And I think this is an important discussion because if our motivation is off, if we're not thinking carefully about what is motivating us to pursue integrity and to live with integrity, we may find ourselves missing our destination. We may find ourselves off course still. And I think my story, my experience, my past will help exemplify what I'm talking about in relation to this. So here's my story. I would say, in hindsight, after much self-reflection, The greatest fault that I struggled with was I did not commit myself to living and communicating honestly in life. It's not that I went about trying to lie intentionally, it's just more so that I was afraid of speaking my truth. I was afraid of expressing how I really felt and what I really believed. And the community that I spent time with, there was an expectation I felt to align with a certain narrative or a certain way of thinking and believing. And so out of the desire to feel safe, I try to align as best as I could with that, and I try to relate to that. And as a result, I practiced being dishonest for most of my life because I could never actually speak and ask the questions I wanted. I could never actually say, hey, I want to challenge this idea. I want to express this desire. And so not being able to do that, I just kind of shut myself down internally. And so my greatest fault, I would say, was I was not honest with myself. I was not honest with those that I was in community with. And as a result, the very foundational connections that I was building, not only with myself, but with many others around me, was very faulty. I was very successful at people pleasing, and I was very codependent, and I could read individuals and almost guess what it was that their expectations were of me, and I could knock that out of the park and do that really well. And I got a lot of affirmation and praise as a result of it. But the funny thing is, as much love and affirmation as I got because I was able to do all that, the real thought in my mind was, if you only knew the real me, then you would not like me. And so that nullified any love and praise and acceptance and affirmation that I got. I in essence dispelled all that, saying, this, I wish I could believe what you're saying about me, but I can't believe it for myself. And so my self-worth plummeted as a result. And so this commitment to living dishonestly, and again, it was out of the desire to feel safe, sent me on a trajectory far from what my truth was, far from it. And I was so detached from it. And it was just it was really sad because that space for me was so isolating that no one would ever get to know the real me. And as a result of not knowing the real me, I just didn't feel like I could connect. And that was the sad part. Now, because of this pattern of dishonesty all through, it infused all of my relationships, including when I eventually met the woman I felt for my dreams, and I got married to her. And before I'd met her, I'd done some reading on relationships because I hadn't had any experience with relationships until my latter 20s. And one of the ideas that came about from my reading was this understanding of what transparency looked like. The fact that someone could know me, all of me, the warts and all, the worst parts about me and the good parts, and they could actually accept me. This is an idea that I found mind-boggling and so amazing, and I desperately wanted this. And so I promised myself, if I ever meet the one woman of my dreams that I want to marry, I'm going to tell her everything about me so that she and I can have that transparency where she knows what she's getting into with me, and that there could be this hopeful acceptance. And I try to keep my promise, and I worked up the courage before we got married to tell her my past and everything that I felt ashamed about and everything that I thought would write me off as an individual. But halfway through this disclosure to her, I freaked out internally and then reverted to my former patterns of speaking dishonestly, saying, this was once a problem, but it's not a problem anymore. And I felt in that moment, dear listener, this beautiful thing that I hoped I could experience of living transparently. I felt it die inside, and it was a really sad moment. And from this moment forward, I thought, I guess I'm never going to experience what this could be. And I wrote myself off again, and I went ahead and got married. It wasn't long into our marriage that she discovered that I'd been consuming pornography, which was really painful and hurtful for her. And I tried to help her understand that it wasn't her, it was me, because she thought it was her who's doing something wrong. And I said, no, this is me. And I just lacked the courage to talk to you about my past this way, and I've hurt you as a result. And so I made a decision. I'm going to try fix myself, and with some help from the leaders at our church, I committed to some new measures. But here's what I didn't realize: I wasn't trying to get back on the right track for the right reason. This is why I say, check your motivation. Is it on course or is it off course? My motivation wasn't to try and experience transparency all over again and just be like upfront and honest with everyone in my world. It was more like, I don't want to lose this beautiful person in my life. I love her dearly, and I still want to be married with her, and I have a family, and I like the community that I'm in, and I have a reputation that I've built up, and I don't want to lose any of this. And so that was my motivation that I embarked on, trying to get back on the right track, but it wasn't deep enough. It didn't get down to the core of me. I was just trying to fix this problem on the surface level so I could still have my cake and eat it too. I still wanted to have this woman in my life as my wife. And that was why I tried to, get back on track. And as I did so, there was that sense of panic that says, I don't want to lose this, so I'll do whatever, I'll say whatever to get her back. And this worked for a few years, but then I reverted back because it didn't go deep enough. And I started doing what I did before, living dishonestly. Except this time I even went further. And this time, not only was I consuming pornography, I actively started cheating on my wife. And I knew this was wrong, but that's what I did. And as a result, I just felt even far more, removed from what could have been. Until a catalytic moment, one experience that I had where an individual asked why they couldn't have all of me, while I was cheating on my wife with her. And in that moment, I remembered this thing that I really desired, and that was transparency, that I would be known. And this time I couldn't turn off this feeling that I wanted to be upfront and honest with my whole world. And I knew this was going to be really scary, because if I really followed through it, like this is now getting down to the very core of me saying, who are you and how can you live and exist in this zone of dishonesty? And I really wanted not to be in this place anymore. And it's getting right down to that core that I was describing. And this time my motivation took to the right foundation. And that was at the very core. My motivation was, this is going to be scary, and I'm very likely going to lose everything that I hold dear in my life, from my relationship to my wife and my kids. I had kids by this time, to my community. I was going to lose my reputation. I was going to lose my career. I was going to lose everything. And yet, in spite of that daunting forecast of losing everything, I just couldn't turn off this desire that said, but I need to be honest with me first. And then I need to be honest with all of my world, even if I lose them. And you see the contrast there? Before, when I first got caught, it was more like, I don't want to lose everything here, so I'm going to try to do what I need to do, but it didn't go far enough. This time it went so deep, and I said, I'm definitely going to be losing everything, and that's going to be painful and sad and heartbreaking for all involved, and myself included. But it needs to experience this. And that was where the genesis of integrity for me took, to say, I'm locked in. I want to consider this motivation and get down to the deep core so that I'm transformed from the inside out, from the very, very base. And it began this process of me practicing how to speak honestly in my world, how to be able to ruthlessly get to know who I am and what I stand for, and to start to speak my truth, even though I'm going to lose everything. And can I tell you something? That deep desire for wholeness is why I include that in my definition of integrity. Like the tagline for our podcast is, integrity calls and wholeness responds. I'm not sure if you were like me, living this dissociated existence where you couldn't really be who you are because you're afraid of what other people are thinking, and you're so held captive by that you're going to continue living and squandering your life in this zone of dysynchronicity, if you will. And it takes tremendous courage. It takes tremendous courage to pursue integrity for the right motivation. And integrity, when you are pursuing it, is going to ask for everything in your life. It's not going to leave any corner untouched. And so I wanted to share my story of my motivation for pursuing integrity, because I believe it's really critical we're asking that question. Why are we pursuing walking with integrity? And what's the cost we're willing to pay? Because integrity is going to ask for everything. Integrity is going to reach deep in and say, I want to touch every part of your life and help you experience wholeness in it all. And in that process, it's going to be painful. It's going to be messy. There's going to be much loss and tears and sadness. But the cost pales in comparison to what it is to actually live in wholeness, to know that you're able to speak and present your truth to the world for the right reason. So, dear Binteger, what is your motivation? I hope to challenge you that way. Let me know your thoughts on this. Thanks again for listening. Bye for now.